Welcome to the Revolve Recap weekly podcast where we help the members of Revolve Church deepen their connection to God, His family, His mission, and they get to stay connected. They get to stay in the loop. That's the whole purpose of this podcast. I'm your host, David McCumber, and with me, as always, 90% of the time, Billy.
What'd you call me earlier?
Billy, straight shooter? Billy.
Burned out Billy?
No, not burned out Billy. I don't remember. Best friend Billy.
Aw.
Melissa has a friend called Best Friend Wendy.
That doesn't flow like best friend.
Easy for you to say. Oh, man. Hold on one second. I got to type something here real quick. Just kind of hang in there. Let me finish typing this.
It's just a little stomp action.
Just a little
here,
stomp
guys.
action. We were trying to bring the 90s back.
Well, because when you bump the spring, it sounds like the entrance into like a Japanese samurai movie. Here he comes.
Yeah, and we don't really have any good stories for this week, so we figured that would be our intro.
Yeah, hope you guys liked it.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be like a whole 20-minute thing.
Did you ever see Stomp?
We saw Blue Man Group, which kind of has like some Stomp type stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen like YouTube videos of Stomp.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've seen YouTube videos of the Grand Canyon. Stop. I've seen YouTube videos of the Grand Canyon, so I guess I don't really ever need to visit it, huh?
Well,
no, you got to see things in real life, Billy. You got to get out there and live your.
Does Stomp even still exist?
It doesn't.
No, because that's
it exists in your heart.
That's like me being like, Dave, did you ever get to go see
Journey, the original lineup,
the Jaws ride in Disney? Because it's gone.
It
Too
is?
late now.
Yeah, my dad helped work on that.
I know. Well, I think we talked about that on a podcast once.
Yeah. But I've seen Stomp and I've seen Blue Man Group. So
I seen a horse fly. Seen a house fly.
Not to flaunt my, culture.
Well, you're very cultural.
Yep, I've seen Wicked on Broadway.
Well, I beat unseen about everything if I seen an elephant fly. You know what I'm saying?
No, what is that?
Nah, don't worry about it, David. You obviously haven't seen Dumbo.
Oh my gosh. All right,
guys. Listen, David, intro. That was a weak intro, so we got a new intro.
We got a new intro.
It's an old intro.
Actually, this
old
intro. This intro is because this is no nonsense podcast. None of this chit chatting about Dumbo and Blue Man Group. We're just going right into it. What you chewing on, Billy?
What you chewing on?
What you chewing on? Chewing.
I always say
celery. You have to chew celery forever.
It's the truth.
I'm afraid to eat celery.
You wouldn't be afraid. That's such a David thing. Melissa, I think I'm going to choke if I eat celery.
Because I don't really chew my food. I just put it in and I send it down the gullet. And celery, you have to chew so much.
I think celery is made in the lab, like the Incredible Hulk. I don't think it's natural. It's too many strings all pushed together. It's like particle board, basically.
I feel like celery was invented by God to kill gluttons.
You know what?
It's
Maybe
you're a glutton. You don't chew your food good enough. God's going to choke you out.
Listen, we're going to talk about this. Hold that thought, because that's actually in my notes.
Whoa.
Celery.
Gluttony and celery? Wow.
Gluttony. I'm going to add it right here so I don't forget.
All right. So what you chewing on, Billy? Like celery? You put peanut butter on your celery? Cream cheese?
Yeah, when I was doing the Atkins diet way back when, I put cream cheese and peanut butter on it.
Yeah, and bacon.
And I wrapped it in bacon, and then I deep fried it. Ate it on a burger between two pieces of ham.
Melissa did something this weekend. I'm not sure if you're aware of this. She put the bacon in flour?
Yeah.
Have you ever done that?
I saw a recipe for that, but that kind of defeats the purpose of low carb if you're doing that.
Low carb?
Well, that's what Atkins is. We were talking about Atkins before.
I'm just talking about on Saturday. She made it this way.
It's delicious. I think I saw a recipe that they had you basically tossing the bacon in Bisquick and then wrapping it around asparagus and baking it. So it was almost like...
If you replaced asparagus with a sausage link, it'd be amazing.
Anyway.
All right, Bill, what you chewing on?
What am I chewing on? Well, this morning... So
Book of Micah?
I did talk with Micah Vance a few weeks ago, but I also read Micah.
Yeah.
Not Micah Vance. I read the book Micah. I'm assuming he's named after the book, the prophet.
You know how I always tell the Vance's boys apart? Is because
Isaiah's a major prophet.
Is a major prophet and he's older.
Yeah, that's good.
So
that's good. But I'm going to mess you up because Micah comes chronologically before Isaiah.
Yeah, but Isaiah is 3 sentence syllables. Isaiah.
Oh, you are so
bigger.
funny. You're like Michael Scott.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, so what am I chewing on? Well, I think I told you guys last week during Bible Hacks with Billy and Dynamite Devotional Tips with David that I'm doing this Bible in 90 days thing. And so I'm working my way now. I'm in the latter prophets because I'm using the Hebrew structure.
I wish I had a button on here that I could push and it went, humble brag. Every time you're like, I read the Bible in 90 days, humble brag.
You know what? Whatever.
I did Atkins in the 90s, humble brag. It's going to be a button I'm going to add.
Sure, can you modify those buttons?
I can.
Well,
and
let's
I will.
make one.
Humble brag.
Let's do that.
All right, Bill, get back to your...
Okay, so I'm reading
super
Micah
spiritual.
and... Oh my gosh.
Reading Micah in the original Hebrew. Humble
I didn't
brag.
say in the original Hebrew. I said in the Hebrew order. Never mind. All right, anyway, so I'm reading Micah, and everybody knows, not everybody knows, but a lot of people know that Micah 6:8 is like the verse from Micah that people know. Micah 6:8, do justly, love mercy, walk humbly. Or I think it's a little different in the ESV versus the NIV. I had memorized it in the NIV, do justly, love mercy, walk humbly. Let me read it here in the ESV just for comparison. The ESV is do justice, love kindness, walk humbly with your God. NIV kind of flows a little bit more, you know?
Yeah.
I first heard it from Stephen Curtis Chapman, though, in his song, The Walk.
Not
do
familiar.
Justly, love mercy, walk humbly with your God.
Wow.
You don't remember? You didn't know that?
Didn't
That's
know
a
that
great acoustic guitar lick. Anyway, so I was thinking this morning, what does that mean, Lord? I had like one of those quiet times where you read like 9 chapters and you're like, I have no profound thoughts, you know? So then I was just thinking, all right, I'm going to focus on this verse because I know it's like a classic verse. What has he told you, O man? What is good? And what does the Lord require? Do justly, love mercy, walk humbly. And I was like, justice and mercy are kind of like the opposite. And so I was chewing on that and thinking through that. What does it all mean, David? How do I do justly and love mercy? They seem conflictory. Let's talk about it. What does it look like, especially because yesterday we talked about truth and grace. So what does it look like to do justly and to love mercy?
Well, I'm trying to think in human terms.
Mm-hmm. As opposed to like beaver terms.
Yeah, so
if I were a beaver.
No, so if you were in a court, so you think of justice, I think of court, a court scenario. So if you're in court, you break the law, you were speeding and you had $900 in parking tickets.
Okay.
Justice would be you put people in danger because you were speeding.
So we cut off your arm.
No, I would say you'd have to
pay a fine.
A fine and maybe go to like a safe driver school or something. Yeah. That would be justice because it's not fair to those whose lives you put in danger for you to just get away free. But mercy would be you get away free.
So so let me get this straight. So Frank speeding too much. Justice would be he has to go to the Billy school for kids who can't drive good and want to do other stuff good too.
Yeah.
Yep. But instead, he doesn't have to go. So if I'm supposed to do... Now, I love the idea of receiving mercy, not justice. I mean...
You like the idea of receiving mercy.
Right.
And but you don't want to have to go to Billy's driving school and pay that fine.
I don't. So, but what I'm saying is as a person, God says, do justly and love mercy. And so here was my thought. And I said to the Lord, God, how do I do that? How do I do justly and love mercy, love kindness? And he goes, Bill, Read the next 2 words. Walk humbly. And I thought to myself,
Self.
I learned this at the Bill Lackey School for kids who can't read good and they want to read the Bible good too. I thought, that's interesting. Walking humbly is how you walk in the balance of justice and mercy. Because if I, in my humility, know that I need mercy, I'm more apt to give mercy. And if in my own pursuit of humility, I realize that sometimes I need tough love, I will also process through when I need to give that tough love. So it's like humility is the key to walking justly and mercifully. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Now I'm just thinking I'm trying to think of, in my own home. Yesterday you talked about parenting. So thinking of my own parenting, there needs to be justice when rules are broken and kids are disobedient. But then showing mercy is a balance.
Well, it's kind of like this. When I yell at my kids and I'm like, you guys are on the iPad way too much. You guys need to get off the iPad.
And then you're on your phone.
And then I'm on my phone.
Yeah.
So humility says, hey, Bill, you struggle with this too. And so justice would be that all of you guys are going to put the devices down. And mercy is going to be that you're not going to beat your kids up, because they're on the iPad, because they want to watch Netflix while you mindlessly read the news or whatever it might be. So that's like that's a baby example, you know what I mean? But that kind of idea.
Yeah, but it's relevant.
Mm-hmm. So anyway,
that's good.
What about you? What are you chewing on?
What am I chewing on? So, let's see. In my quiet time this morning, okay, so I had a really interesting quiet time. And right or wrong, this is how it happened. Last night I watched the movie called The Blind, which is the story of Phil Robertson from Duck Dynasty fame. It's a great movie. Really enjoyed it. Is that mailman going to come in?
I don't know. There's a mail truck outside, and I know how David doesn't like it when the podcast gets interrupted, because then he's got to edit stuff.
Mm-hmm. No, I don't think it's the mail lady who comes in.
Mail lady loves coming in because she loves Kodiak.
Kodiak hasn't been here in 3 years.
She comes in every day looking for him when she's around, though. Okay. Anyway, sorry, David.
So I watched this movie, The Blind, with Phil Robertson.
Blindside.
And no, not Blindside.
Oh.
It's called The Blind. I had this argument with Corey earlier, and he's like, "They all could see, though," and I'm like,
"It's a duck blind, Corey. It's a duck."
But it's funny because he came in and everyone was praying, so all their eyes were closed, and he's like, "Oh, they're all blind?" I'm like, no, they're praying.
Yes,
their eyes
Corey.
are closed. But his baptism in the story was really.
Don't tell me the whole story. What if I want to watch it?
Just
don't ruin anything.
I won't.
Does he start Duck Dynasty?
The baptism was really powerful because you see his character develop as a bad guy, and then he's baptized, and you see his character develop as a follower of Christ and seeking the fruits of the Spirit. And I was kind of went to bed chewing on this idea of, there's areas of my life where I kind of get frustrated.
How you doing? Thank you.
Have a good day. You have a good day, pal.
That's David's. He hates that, guys.
I don't hate it.
He does. He hates that guy now.
I want you guys to have a good podcast listening experience.
All right. So
I went to bed. I went to bed thinking of, as a follower of Christ, there's, thinking of 2 Corinthians 5, the old is dead, has passed away. The new has come. Those who are alive in Christ, the old is dead, the new has come. And I was just thinking, man, there's parts of my life where I really kind of I'm not happy with, and they're kind of habitual. I don't even say sins, but just like thoughts.
Encumbrances. Hebrews 12.
Yes.
Toss aside every sin and encumbrance.
So there's these encumbrances, and I'm like, that's old David. I should throw that away. So I made a note before I went to bed on my journal that I wanted to make a list of like old David stuff that I would love to see die and replace with new David stuff.
I love that.
Even though baptized. I've been following Jesus for a long time. There's still areas of my life I want to root out. So I get up in the morning, and I don't like going on my phone before quiet time, but I had to Google what the verse was that said, search my heart for any wicked way. I knew it was a psalm, but I didn't know exactly where it was.
So what is it?
Psalm 138?
39, I think.
139? 139. And so I'm reading it, and like the last verse is, search my heart, O Lord, show me any grievous way. And that's where I was like, all right, God, show me all the dirt. I'm going to journal the crap out of that. And then I wrote that I said crap because that's a bad word. So I started, and in my prayer, God said, reread that passage. And he said, go back. And it says, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. And I realized I'm a creation of the Most High. And to have an exercise where I just kind of eviscerate myself and like beat myself up is like kind of counterproductive.
It's so interesting that you can't. I love that.
And it was just like, I was almost going to turn this exercise, which seems like a healthy exercise, into an opportunity to beat myself up, which is one of the things that would be listed. Is like, yes. I hate that I beat myself up, and I like think of how much of a loser I am.
What a loser.
Isn't that kind of funny? And God was like, I love this. God was like, you know what?
That's not you anymore.
That's not you. Like, don't make that list. So my list just said old David and says dead, new David, alive.
I love it.
And it was more like, let's just focus on the fruits of the Spirit, loving God, love your neighbor.
Yep.
Love, joy, peace, self-control. And let's not think of like, oh, well, I overeat and I eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches at 11 o'clock at night, because that's what it was going to turn into.
See, but I love this idea. I'm gonna merge us right into the look back yesterday, because I think this builds off of yesterday's sermon as we looked at the Eli's wicked sons and this big idea of sowing and reaping. And because if you think about it, it's like you get a different harvest by sowing differently. Like, you reap what you sow.
Okay.
So in other words, like you just said, I beat myself up, and so I'm going to make a list of all the things I suck at.
Yeah.
That's the same old sowing.
Yeah.
But if you sow differently, you're going to reap differently.
Yeah.
If I focus on who I am in Christ, that's sowing differently.
Yeah.
And when I think about it this way, any struggle with sin, like when I first became a believer, and I'm in like my early, how old are you in college? I'm like 18, 19, first became a believer.
I went to college when I was 15.
Wow.
I was like a prodigy when I was at a Juilliard for the violin scholarship.
Is that when you?
But you probably went when you were 18.
Is that when you formed the band Prodigy?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I was a fire starter.
Right.
All right. So 18 is when most people go to college.
All right. Breathe with me for a second. Breathe with me. It's another Prodigy song. Okay. Anyway. So you think about when you're 18, 19, first came believer, and the Lord was like, whoa, hey, just so you know, pornography is bad. And I was like, wait, pornography is bad? And you start saying, okay, how do I stop this? And you focus on not doing this instead of just sowing differently in your life. And it was like, I lost the desire for that, not because I was like, that's it. I lost that desire because I started feasting my eyes on the Word of God. Yeah. And then God started changing my appetite. And I think it's very easy to try to conquer our sin by like sowing the same old stuff.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I think David and I are similar personality. One of the things that I really struggle with is this idea of getting caught in this vicious cycle of like my encumbrances, which a big thing for me has always been gluttony. Like my weight's gone up and down 50 pounds over the years. Like depending on the year, I've been as high as, 230. I've been as low as 165, and I'm just like all over in between. But then what happens is like I deal with my stress through this, and then I feel terrible about myself, which leads me to turn to these vices, and it's just like this cycle. And it's like the way out is not more of the same. Mm-hmm. But for whatever reason, it's like we keep trying to throw the same seed and expect there's going to be a different harvest. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I really enjoyed, I agree with that. And I really enjoyed that, the idea of in your quiet time, this is like a little bit of learning here. We need to be listening. And it was like, taking time to really ponder that that scripture, and think, okay, I'm not reading into the scripture what I want to get out of it.
Yeah.
I want the scripture to speak to me. And then by doing so, like, my quiet time was
awesome.
Totally changed and was awesome. But I went to bed with, like, this is what my quiet time's going to be. I'm going to read this verse because I want it to say this to me. And God was like, no. Just listen to me. I have a different word for you. And I just think that, be sure when you go to your quiet time, those of you who are listening, when you're in your quiet time, be sure to set aside time to listen, and not just like read and be like, okay, this is what God has for me.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I love that idea, changing what we're sowing. We're sowing truth. We're really focusing on those things. I want to double back to this comment on encumbrances. Hebrews 12, let us toss aside every sin and encumbrance that hinders us.
Get rid of all that clothes. We're running that race.
Run
Gotta get them shorty shorts on.
Yeah, those Ranger,
running a parka.
Ranger panties. What do they call them? Those
I don't know.
Sophie shorts, the things that you wear, the military wears them.
Gotcha.
Whatever.
I haven't run a race in a long time, Billy.
Well, what I was going to say is that I think encumbrances are harder to get rid of than sin.
Yeah.
I think when you think of sin and you're like, well, I got to stop, whatever, cussing, like you said, that idea, making a joke about it, but like that idea, I got to stop swearing. It's like, that's easy to get rid of. What's hard to get rid of is stuff that's not outright sinful, but it's so intertwined with your life.
Yeah, like self-doubt, like you're kind of... and I've been talking to you a lot about this lately. It's just the idea of like trying to be a people pleaser.
Right.
And it's kind of like, well, that's actually like idolatry.
Yeah.
Which,
or
we don't look at that as a sin.
Well, yeah.
But it's definitely an encumbrance.
Watching 6 hours of NFL every Sunday. It's like, well, that's not a sin.
Yeah.
But is it helping you become more like Jesus?
No.
You know what I mean? It's like that kind of idea. It's like, it's not a sin to, to whatever. I can't even think of something. Go out to eat every Friday. Mm-hmm. But it's like, well, maybe that $100 could be better spent somewhere else. And maybe it's fine for you, but for somebody else, it's a big distraction or whatever it might be. You know what I mean? Those encumbrances, they're situational. They're often personal conviction. Like I think for me, I remember when the Lord was like, you can't play video games because you can't handle it. Video games aren't sin, but you just can't handle it. You download a game, you buy a game, and then before you know it, you're playing 15 hours a week instead of 15 minutes.
Yeah.
That kind of idea. It's like, that's just the way I am. And I remember when I had those thoughts with the Lord, it was really hard for me to come to that conclusion because I was like, but it's not a sin. But the truth is that, like, I know that I waste my time. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I want to be a good steward. So just that idea of sowing to the right things.
I wish you could come do like a Scared Straight talk with Corey. Because this is literally the conversation we had last night with Corey. He's like, you don't even care about my video games.
And you're like, I don't.
And I'm like, it's not that I don't care what you're into, but I don't really necessarily think you need to play Fortnite for 3 hours.
Right. Yeah. I had a conversation with a guy who I'm meeting with, and I probably have said this to you before, David, probably not on the podcast, though. This is my new theory.
Okay.
You guys heard it here first.
New theory with Billy.
I think pornography for men like ruins intimacy for obvious reasons. And in other words, I think we have a generation of emotionally, relationally stunted men because of porn addiction, right? What pornography does for men's poor understanding of intimacy, video games does for a man's understanding of masculinity. Which is why I think we have a whole generation of boys who are 30 years old.
Yeah.
It's almost like, why would I try hard to conquer that when I can go conquer a dragon on this game?
Yes.
Like, why would I go outside and be disciplined to like learn how to do XYZ sport when I can just play Madden 2024 on the Xbox.
Yeah.
And so it's like all of that drive which God has placed within men to like conquer and to explore and to go and like guts and glory, it's all been taken away because it's been a cheap substitute as video games, the same way that pornography is a cheap substitute for intimacy.
Wow. Yeah. No, I agree with that. 100%. I don't have anything to add. I
Anyway,
think it's really good. I mean,
do you guys agree?
We are hardwired as men to, like you said, to be conquerors, to be, warriors, kings, shepherds. You know, shepherds are protectors, all those things that we talk about.
Video games are making our men effeminate.
Even if they're playing like Call of Duty.
Yeah.
So it's like they're playing Call of Duty and it's like, That's
just my theory. You guys can disagree with me.
No.
But as someone who was addicted to video games, it was like, well, why would I try so hard over here? Because I'm just going to do this.
Yeah.
This is like more fun. It's more enjoyable.
Oh, man,
it's instant release, instant gratification.
You're hijack. This talk ago. We could talk about this all day.
Maybe we should talk about it all day. Put some clickbait in that title. Shoot. Video games are turning you into a baby.
Yeah, babies.
It's the truth, though.
But no, I think just to keep digging into that topic again. Bill and I have had this discussion in the past, and we've with Scotty as well. Like, you think of video games and you think of pornography. It's like when you are a young man, and I'm speaking in real broad strokes here.
Yeah, these are stereotypes.
You're a young man. You want to get a mate. What's the joke? Everyone gets a dad bod. Like, after they get married, their body kind of falls apart. This is broad strokes again. Because when you're young, you're going to the gym so you can impress women.
Yeah.
So you can get a mate. Like, that's kind of naturally who we are.
Yep.
But it's like, if you're getting that relational satisfaction through pornography,
there's no drive.
There's no drive to go to the gym and get better at sports. Mm-hmm. So then you replace that with video games. It's like, I feel like it's really intertwined. And then we don't have to have conversations. The sense of community is replaced by social media. We don't have to sit down at the dinner table and talk anymore. We have created
an artificial universe that we get to live in.
Yeah.
And I think when you think about it this way, Paul, when he makes his lists of sins, and I'd have to look up the exact, but when he writes his list of sins, he's like, this was the way you used to live. Put off, and he lists sensuality and he goes, it's really, those are two big lists. The first list is sexual, and the second list is like 8 or 9 words: envy, dissension, slander. They're all anger related.
Yeah.
So you have these two big brushstrokes for men of sexual sin and anger. Mm-hmm. And if you think of it this way, pornography targets sexual sin and video games target anger, or more specifically, that like drive.
Yeah.
Which is why men get angry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They get angry because they like want to fight for something.
Yeah.
Or about anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's like video games fill that. Like, you put an Xbox controller in me and start making me play Halo, and all of a sudden you're going to be like, what is up with Bill? All of a sudden, like this, Gina in college, she's like, I never hear you swear until you're playing Halo. You know what I mean? And then it was like, all of a sudden it came out.
Yeah.
And so you just think about that video games are for your masculinity what pornography is for your intimacy, in terms of how it's ruining you.
Yeah. And then we see an uptick, and then
You think The Rock plays video games?
We'll just land the plane after this. Oh, man. You remember Central Intelligence? We watched that movie on the airplane one time.
That was so funny.
It was funny, but it's funny when you're with your adult friends, but then when you go to watch it with like your teenager, and you're like, oh, that was inappropriate. But and then you take all this, and then you realize this is why people are just crazy. Why you can't go a day without reading the news and there's somebody that loses their mind on an airplane.
Right.
Because it's like we live, like, because you said we live in this artificial world where we don't communicate. We don't fight for what's right. We don't have relationship. We don't have community because of, Instagram and Facebook. And then it's like when we get in a real world and we get in a small place like an airplane or like a mall or a grocery store, people just lose their minds.
Right. And then you think about stuff like, Now, instead of going camping, I'm going to watch this guy's ASMR video of him camping.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And instead of going fishing, I'm going to watch this guy fish.
Instead of reading my Bible, I'm just going to listen to a YouVersion Bible app.
Yeah, I mean, you could go there for sure. But I think everything is like, it's all a cheap substitute. But it's like fast food.
Like you could listen to your YouVersion devotional where they have the videos where the guy talks to you about 5 minutes, a little devotional thing, or you could sit and encounter the Word of God.
Yeah.
There's so many things we make.
Man.
We could go to church or we could just listen to a podcast. It's like this isn't meant to enable. This is like an additional resource.
Right.
But, there's people that could say, oh, I don't need to go to church. I just listen to the podcast.
I don't need to talk with Bill and Davey. I can just watch them on the podcast.
Yeah. Wow. That was whoa. Jinx, you owe me a Coke. Apparently you can't jinx under a roof. That's a new rule my kids have thrown at me.
You know what? I'm sick of these rules, these little whippersnappers.
Yeah. You know what you can't jinx? And play Fortnite. So I'm unplugging your TV. That's what I tell them.
The other day we were driving and Eden goes, oh, Jeep Touch.
Jeep Touch.
And I was like, Jeep Touch? And I was like, first of all, it's Punch Buggy.
It's Punch Buggy.
And
Jeep Touch? What's wrong with this generation?
Kids are getting liberal.
Well, I think that was just the intro. We're at like 33 minutes.
No,
intro.
we're going to look up.
All right.
Let's take a couple second pause.
Let's take a break.
Jeep Touch.
Not Jeep Touch. That's horrible. All right,
Jeep
Touch was in the I'll tell Eden. I'm not afraid of Eden.
I love that. She's going to No Limits Boxing Academy.
I love that 2 weeks ago Corey ran out at the end of the third song, and then yesterday Eden ran out.
Oh my goodness!
Man, they're like the same kid. They are so funny.
We're gonna look up.
We're looking up.
Looking up. What
about this weather? Looking up at that weather.
Here we go again, talking about the weather.
Shoo.
Casual conversation.
All right, what are we doing, Billy? Vision cast for us, Billy.
No, we just want to remind you guys that we've been talking this month about building God's kingdom by His power for His glory. And we've been talking about 3 big initiatives for the year: prayer, missions, and next gen. Last week, we talked about next gen as in who's your Timothy, who you pouring into, who's your Paul, who's investing in you, who's your Barnabas, who's your buddy,
Yep.
who's sharpening you.
Yep.
And you know what? None of you put comments in the comment section about who you're investing in. And
Nope.
Dear.
One of the guys that I'm meeting with, I hope you listen to this. I'm calling you out.
Calling you out, pal.
We're supposed to meet on Saturday. And I said, let's meet on Saturday for breakfast. And he said, how about 10 a.m.?
10 a.m.? It's not breakfast time.
I was like, bro, rule number 1.
Get off those video games, you know what I'm saying?
That's true. So, you know who you are if you're watching.
10 a.m. is brunch. 10 a.m. is almost lunch.
It's halfway.
Halfway through the day. I've been up since 2 a.m.
Yep, praying, fasting.
I fast until breakfast every day.
We were in an elders meeting one time, and Bill said, I just want to let you know I've been taking some time to pray and fast until lunch. And I was like, Bill, that's just called the morning, just so you know. And he's like, I guess you're right. He's like, I fast like 4 hours in between each meal. Just prayer and fasting.
All right, listen, here's the deal, guys.
So who's your Timothy?
I don't want to say that. I don't want to say the
names.
You.
Not you. I'm saying, come on, peoples.
Who's your Timothy?
I want to hear it. Don't put it in a comment. Let us know.
You can text me. You can let me know. Yeah. And if you're saying I want someone to pour into me, let us know.
Let us know. Try to get you connected. People call us all the time, and they're like, oh, we want you to be. No.
That doesn't happen.
No, it doesn't happen.
But the point is, if you're looking for some investment to happen.
Yeah.
Jen and I were just talking about this morning. Jen's got some connections she wants to start pouring into more, and these are great opportunities, so you take advantage of it.
Yep.
So, David.
Yes.
Looking up.
I've
been thinking about disciple-making movements.
Yeah, DMM.
What is it? What is DMM? What's the disciple-making movement? How would you summarize that for our people?
Disciple-making movement is, well, let's look at the words. You got disciples. Who are disciples? They're followers of Christ, right? So they have disciples who are followers of Christ. They're making other disciples who follow Christ, and then there's movement. So it happens over and over and over and over and over again.
That's great.
So disciple-making movement is disciples who make disciples who make disciples to the end of the earth.
Yeah, I love that. David and I just finished doing a disciple-making movements training a couple weeks ago in New York City, and I was kind of doing a little debrief in my brain about that because we got some feedback from the people who participated. And
they did a survey?
Yeah, they did a survey, good, bad, and the ugly.
Oh,
and
nervous.
And so I was just thinking about what they said, and it was mostly positive, what the people said, but there was a couple criticisms, constructive criticisms for improvement. And I was thinking...
Christian sent out a photo from the training, and it looks like I'm asleep.
Well, you probably
I'm
were.
leaning up against...
You probably were taking a nap. Everybody knows you love... You're like... You said, I've never napped here before.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, Sorry. So I've been thinking about this idea of... It's really easy. When you do the first session of disciple-making movement training we talk about how it's not a silver bullet. But the truth is, it's really easy to treat everything like a silver bullet.
Yeah.
So it's easy to be like, well, the silver bullet is fill in the blank. Silver bullet
DBS,
is house churches.
Time.
Yeah, DBS is your silver bullet. You just do DBS, or you just do this, you just do that, you just do a simple church, you just do a small church, you just do a mega church, just do multi-site. We get something that we like, and then it's easy to turn it into what we think everybody should do. And so I was really thinking, Lord, what do I like about disciple-making movements? And I know they call me back to basics, Billy, but it really goes back to the ABCs. I love the Word. I love the Spirit. I love prayer. And at the end of the day, that's what God uses. He uses prayer. He uses the Word. He uses the Spirit. It's simplicity. It's organic. It's reproducing disciples, reproducing leaders, reproducing groups as we learn to be people who operate in the Spirit as we pray and engage in the Word. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So how do you grow in that? If you're going all in on that, how do you get more of it?
That's what I'm thinking.
What you're chewing on.
That's what I'm chewing on is, what does it look like to keep growing in those things? And so, the Word, we talk about hearing, obeying, and sharing, right? So one thing I've been thinking about is I want to be, and I got to, David will tell you, the elders will tell you, they call me Rain Me and Billy. But I was thinking, I really want to figure out, like the DBS, the Discovery Bible Study is great for encountering the Word on the most basic level, but I really want to help people improve in how they read the Word. So like, how do we read better? How do we hear better? How do we hold people accountable better in those ideas of obedience and sharing in a natural way, not in like a heavy-handed way?
Well, I think the vulnerability of what we share on the podcast in our own quiet time
is good.
Is helpful.
Modeling
that. So, when I say, hey, I was going to read the Bible and this is kind of what my plan was.
I'm just going to beat myself up.
Yeah, and then the Lord spoke to me. I think that's modeling to people
to,
don't open your word and be like, hey, this is, Micah 6, was it Micah
6:8?
Micah 6:8, and be like, I already know this passage. This is what the Lord's going to teach me. But say,
it's so easy to do once you know the Bible
so
well.
Sharing that, I think, is one step towards that, being modeling.
I think it's really important because we live in an age where it's so easy to hop on the internet and be like, what does this passage mean?
Yeah.
It's so easy to do any of that kind of stuff. And I love what your experience this morning, because I feel like, what did I say to Gina the other day? When I became a Christian, like the internet was still pretty new almost. You know what I mean? It wasn't new, but it was kind of new. You know what I mean? And I remember a guy was like, here's a study Bible.
Yeah.
And that's what I had. Like, I didn't go on I don't even know, there wasn't even a lot of websites that were talking about Christianity stuff. You know what I mean? And so, but now it's like, you got a question, you don't even have to think about it. You can just go Google it.
Just ask Pastor John.
Ask Saint Google, as Breton says.
Well, I mean, even Ask Pastor John is a good resource. I mean, John Piper's a good theological.
It's better to have good resources than bad resources.
But
it's not the Spirit.
Read your Bible.
Well, and I think so what does it look like to keep growing in the Word? I think for me, it's a stillness. That's like what I'm missing. Like when you talked about, I can sit down, with the exception of maybe some of the minor prophets, I am confident that I could sit down with any book of the Bible, any chapter of that book, and I could give you a working outline of what this is teaching with little to no time, because I've been reading the Bible for so many years.
Yeah.
Right? I can do that.
And you're gifted in that.
Well, and it used to take me like 15 hours to prepare a sermon when we first started. I've preached hundreds and hundreds of sermons now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's not as much as it used to be, because you just get better at it. And so thinking about that and then realizing that, but I can't rely on that. Yeah. I need to stop and say, Spirit, what are you saying? And how it's easy to rely on your flesh. You know what I mean? So how do you grow in the Word? I think maybe some of the stuff that we talk about, you kind of being more intentional to slow down in the text. How do you grow in the Spirit? I think it's humble stillness.
Before you move on to the Spirit, can we go back to Word real quick?
Yeah.
I think the thing we've talked about, I don't know if we talked about it on the podcast, but Bill and I and a couple of guys have been reading and not just doing a discovery Bible study, like what to say about God, what to say about man, how do I obey it, who do I share with, but adding in like what are the threads, the gospel threads, like how does the Old Testament
the redemptive
point to
narrative.
So,
I think we mentioned it last week with the highlighting.
Yeah, so I think even that
adds
is helpful because you're adding like another layer, so you're kind of looking at the Word in fresh eyes.
Yeah.
So I would say, I know we're chewing on this as a dialogue, but as advice for those who are listening, is if you've been doing the Discovered Bible Study for a long time, or you always rely on your study notes or something like that, like maybe ask a different question or I don't know, or read a different version. If you always read the ESV, you've been reading the ESV for 10 years, read maybe the NLT this year.
Yep.
And you can kind of like come at it with a little bit fresher eyes.
Agree.
So.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons why I like switching up my translations. I also like getting a new Bible and reading in a blank Bible, so I think about things differently.
Yeah. Okay. So, Spirit. Sorry to interrupt.
Well, no, you didn't interrupt. I think for me, I think you grow in the Spirit through humble, still surrender. Like I think about the Spirit, like I read, I mentioned this. I think maybe I didn't mention on the podcast. I finished Kings last week, and how the power of God was not in the fire, was not in the windstorm, was not in the earthquake. It was in the whisper.
Yeah.
And just that idea of like, am I giving myself to stillness? And the only way to give yourself to stillness is if you can humble yourself. Like you can't be still if you don't humble yourself, because if you think I got to get this done, I need to do this, that's like the opposite of humility.
Yeah, that's what we talked about last week. It's like if we don't turn our phone off,
yes,
we have pride in saying, well, the church needs me and it can't function without me for a half
or my
hour.
Spouse or whatever.
Yeah. So
humble stillness.
Yeah.
Humble stillness, growing in prayer.
And coming to the Word and saying, hey, I do know what Romans 12 says because I've studied it so many times, but I'm going to humbly come before the Word and say, speak to me, Lord, even though I've read this passage 100 times. Wow, those are good questions you're chewing on. Just so you guys know, we kind of write these outlines so we have a little bit of a flow, so it's not just complete rambling the whole hour, but we don't talk about these ahead of time. So Bill kind of puts the topics. So you're hearing us kind of process this in real time.
Our paper says Spirit, ?
Yeah. Yeah. Prayer, ?
So growing in prayer, I love, well, what do you think? Growing in prayer, how are you striving to grow in prayer this year?
I am striving to grow in prayer. Listening more, not just kind of like writing out my prayer, so my own quiet time. But I think...
what does that look like? Just sitting there?
Yeah.
It's so hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Just sitting, not writing anything, and just sitting. And I don't know. And like I think I shared last week, it's not like every time I do that, there's like this, I'm getting ready to write my 99 theses and pin it on a wall or something. But it's but today was a good example of I didn't hear an audible voice, but I felt in my spirit God saying, reread this passage. You're coming at this passage with a prejudice, not prejudice, but preconceived ideas.
Yeah.
And when I reread it, I saw fearfully and wonderfully made, and I was like, "Whoa, I'm a creation. Stop beating up the creation."
Beloved. David means beloved.
That's true. It's true. But corporately, I think I'm really excited with corporately with what's happening at Revolve. The prayer times at 9:30 are growing and becoming, really part of the DNA. I think people are like expecting it now, and they're ready for it and looking forward to it. Where it was kind of impromptu, we were just like, oh, it's prayer time.
Yeah.
But now it's like, hey, it's prayer time. Even as the band, like we're winding down practice and making sure we're getting there. And then the prayer times on Monday night, and things like that. I think we're seeing. I mean, it was like 15 people here last great. Monday night, and then 5 or 6 people online. That's like, you figure 20 people. That's over 10% of the church.
Yeah, it's great.
Or that's like 10%. 200 people.
It's a lot of people.
It's 10% of the church.
Yeah.
To come and pray.
Yeah, because we have only averaged like 150 adults.
Yeah. So for prayer, I'm excited about corporate prayer. People get engaged on the app. I posted last night a prayer request.
It's multiplying prayer on every little micro level instead of just having like a big prayer meeting.
Yeah. Praying with the tweens before service and kind of teaching them about prayer at a student ministry. So I really feel like prayer, personally and corporately, is growing, which is what we're praying for.
Yeah,
that was one of our prayer requests was to have more prayer.
That's true.
So
that's really good.
So that was Looking Up with David and Billy. Impromptu. You're getting a look. This is a normal conversation. If you ever wonder what do Bill and David talk about when we're driving to the airport to go on a trip or something, this is it. These are conversations we have, so you get a look into that.
Kevin and I talked about discipleship in the car for like 8 hours straight.
Yeah.
Scotty was making fun of us.
Yeah. We do play a game like what prop from a movie would you bring if you could have one.
And I always forget. I used to have like a really good.
Yeah.
And I forgot it.
But there's like
Zach. I think Zach had a really clever one, and I don't remember what it was now.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll think about that on the break. And then we're going to come back and we're going to look forward. Look forward. Look ahead. What's going on? Welcome back. Welcome back as we look forward. Juxtaposition. Right? Did I use that word right? Juxtaposition?
Yeah. Listen, I think we should save that prop question for next week.
Okay, yeah.
Because then I think that would be good. We're going to begin with that.
Okay.
And everybody can put their thing in the comments next week.
Well, how are we going to remember?
I'll make a note of it.
Okay.
Yep, I'll make a note of it.
I forget that kind of stuff.
I'll forget too, but I'm going to make a note right now.
Yeah.
Prop
call question. What prop would you bring?
All right.
And if you guys ever have any questions, put them in the comments.
Yeah, please do.
Because it gives us ideas of things you like to talk about. I mean, we had like 70 views on last week's video. We had like 4 people listen to the podcast. It's
700.
Funny. No one listens to the podcast.
Because why would you listen when you can look at us?
Eye candy. Am I right?
It's the truth.
It's the truth.
No dad bods here.
No way. Man, I got married 25 years ago. And rock.
All right, looking ahead. Announcement time, guys. This is Billy with announcements. Looking ahead. We're continuing in 1 and 2 Samuel with the calling of Samuel this week, 1 Samuel 3.
When did it change? Like when you listen to old black and white baseball, and the announcers, they talk like this.
Maybe that was just a recording device.
No.
And then like you hear them in real life and you're like, hey.
Yeah, I don't know. Why did that happen? Because that was kind of like, hear ye, yeah, guy.
There
and
was
even
a guy.
Gangsters, they talked like that. They were like, give me all the money.
You want me to do the announcements like that? The rest of
no, please don't.
Mission trips. Listen, guys.
Listen.
We had to pull the plug on Germany.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, but it was the right decision, and I think Michael and I talked about it. We're on the same page. It just wasn't the right timing.
Yeah.
I think check's up in the air. We only had 3 people sign up, and I don't know if that's going to happen yet. So if you're interested in Czech, you better let us know ASAP. Seed Week is still open. That's in June. That's going to be going up with Christian Fancy Vans Pants and learning about unreached people groups, how to engage cross-culturally. And so, keep your eye on that, revolvechurchnj.com/trips, our website /trips.
And the check trip is 13 and above, right? So if you want
12 and above.
12 and above. So if you wanted to do a little family trip, and
the airfare was pricey.
Yeah.
I think that's part of it. Is like the airfare is like $1,300 or $1,400.
Wow,
which is a lot. I was really surprised.
Yeah,
but such is the way of the world.
Such is the way of the world.
So yeah, but you know what? This mission trip in New York City is cheap and easy.
Yeah,
and
the flight to New York City's like really
it's
cheap.
really cheap.
Yeah.
And I just had this thought right now.
Whoa.
That, if you have an idea for a domestic mission trip that fits Revolve's vision, let us know about it. Ooh. Maybe we went to Moria and worked with all those refugees. Maybe we got on the Texas border. Try to share with some refugees. A lot of Afghans down in that Texas border.
Yeah.
And pretty soon when New Texas starts a revolution.
Whoa.
Serious.
No, that's actually a really good idea. I would say that's Spirit-led, Bill.
Yeah,
you were asking about hearing from the Spirit.
Well, they call me Spirit-led Billy.
So I think the reason we talked about this a lot in the past, was reading the Spirit Walk book. I loved it. And I think because I'm pretty conservative in my views of the Spirit, because I don't want to be charismatic and kind of abuse that. But there is a sense of, the Spirit speaks to you as a guide. You get this feeling to call someone or an idea for something. And I can't tell you how many times that's happened, and I've called somebody or texted somebody just because the Lord puts them on my mind, and they're like, man, I really needed that call right now.
Yeah.
And I think, the Spirit does move, and when we are not on our phones, not watching TV, and we're kind of at peace, and
it's so hard, to break out of those habits.
Yeah. So yeah, if you feel the Spirit's leads,
prompting. Yeah. I'm saying you got to tell us.
Yeah. I mean, maybe, I don't know. Maybe even do something in Wildwood.
Well, first of all, No Limits Academy is a great opportunity for discipleship and encouragement. To think about that. Really a lot of great stuff happening over there in Rio Grande. There's the branches, there's Family Promise, there's Code Blue. There's so many things. Ask the Lord how he would have you serve. And if you get an idea, let us know. Because maybe we can come alongside you. Maybe there's other people who have like minds and they would like to come alongside you.
What do you think about bringing Josh on the podcast one time?
I think that'd be
talk
great.
A little bit more about the...
Yeah, that'd be great.
Get people to kind of hear his vision. Bill and I have gotten to sit and talk with him and hear his vision for No Limits Academy. And if this is your first time ever hearing about it, it's a boxing, but so much more, gym in Rio Grande. And
they just won a humanitarian award for like a boxing gym in the state.
Yeah,
to help kids out in the community and stuff.
So it's really Josh attends Revolve, and I think you're going to hear a lot more. We probably could give more time on the podcast. And
I'll talk with him about doing that. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, and even if not, maybe next week we can, even if it's just you and I, give
we could go do podcasts on location.
Oh my gosh, I could punch you right in the face.
We don't have to punch.
No, that would be great. We could. How about that for ASMR?
Wow.
Pow, pow, pow.
Well, listen, guys.
If you want to see Bill and I box.
No, don't do this garbage. All right, but I'll tell you what we will do is this.
I'll bite your ear off.
We'll figure this out.
Vander Holyfield.
We'll figure this out. And in the meantime, you still didn't tell us your Timothys.
You didn't let me see the pyramids in Egypt. Pow, pow, pow.
I've never been in a fist fight. Ever.
I've been in one.
Yeah?
Yep.
Well, maybe you can tell us about it next week. I've never been in a fist fight.
It wasn't a fist fight. I was in a
slap fight.
I was in a slapsies fight. I was in France and I took my glove off. I slapped a guy when I was on my scooter. No, I was playing hockey in high school and I threw my gloves down and I put my fist up like I was gonna fight this guy and he hit me right across the face with a hockey stick.
What?
Busted my lip open.
What'd they do to him?
I fell on the ground. Another guy on my team fought him. But
I can't believe
it wasn't in like
across the face with it wasn't like in a game.
Yeah, we were just playing. It was like street hockey.
Oh,
in the Villas in the 90s.
That's
94.
Wow.
This is the good old days.
Yeah,
in the Villas.
I did smack a guy once.
Back in the day when being from the Villas meant something. Now it's like.
All right, now I got to rein David in. Okay, now listen. 1 Samuel 3. We read it for this week. Mission trips. Slap fight. Who are your Timothys? Yeah. Who are you investing in this year?
Yeah.
Right? I'm being serious. I'm not joking around. Don't make David get the boxing gloves out because he will.
Or the hockey stick.
Or the hockey stick. Or the slingshot or whatever, the sling that David used. Not that David, the other David, the namesake. Who are your Timothys? Who are you pouring into? And you say, I don't know, Bill. Hey, let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah. No, for real though. Come up to us and say, hey, I feel
I want to do this, but I don't know where to start.
Yeah. And, you want to talk about taking steps in faith? Discipling someone's a great step in faith because it's a little uncomfortable. You're a little, but.
And you're going to be like, I am not equipped for this. And I tell you something, ready? That feeling never goes away.
Yeah.
Because there's men who I'm meeting with and I'm like, oh, I really stink at discipleship. I really got to figure this out. That's just part of the learning curve. Like, I don't feel like I got it figured out either.
Yeah.
I'm always making new resources and tweaking things because I'm like, I don't know, Lord. And the Lord keeps going, Bill.
Yeah.
It's about the word.
Yep.
And spirit and prayer. Goodbye.
Goodbye.